Chapter 5505. The difference in strength between Diyujue and Junhong Qing wasn't that great. As long as Junhong Qing wanted to leave, there was no way to stop him. After sensing his strength, Mo Yunjue had already guessed this result. Thinking about it, this was the real reason why the Di family and the Jun family had been fighting for so many years without any result. In other words, this was the foundation of the aristocratic families. Why were the aristocratic families always so stable? Because there were many strong people in the family. Even if they couldn't win, leaving was no problem. As long as the bloodline of the family remained, there was a possibility for it to become strong again. This was why the inheritance of the aristocratic families was continuous and unbroken. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, Ziren and the others nodded slightly. The stronger the aristocratic families were, the harder it was to destroy them. Unless there was a huge difference in strength between the two sides, it was impossible to do so. Not long after, Diyujue and the elders of the Di family returned. "Father, how was it?" Di Beichen asked. 2 elders were left behind. Junhong Qing was also seriously injured. Although they weren't left behind, it's still not bad. Diyujue's face rippled with a faint smile. Although he came with the intention of killing Junhong Qing, he also knew that it wouldn't be easy to completely kill him. However, today's result was already a big blow to the Jun family. Junhong Qing was seriously injured and would need to recuperate in a short period of time. The 2 elders who died were also of high status in the Jun family. Moreover, a large number of outstanding cultivators had died. Even for the Jun family, this was a serious blow. The Xiao family's situation is even worse than the Jun family's. Lin Wenlan laughed. For a moment, everyone was relieved. Although many cultivators were injured, their hearts were still filled with joy and satisfaction. Haha, the Jun family must have never thought that today's result would be like this. Just thinking about it makes me happy. They actually thought that they could kill our young master. What a fool's dream. The Jun family and the Xiao family will die in our hands sooner or later. The cultivators cheered. Thinking back to how the Jun family had planted spies in the family, they finally let out a sigh of relief. Diyujue's figure flashed to Di Beichen's side. After noticing that the latter's complexion had recovered, he immediately smiled and said, "It seems that Hong Zhuang has helped you heal your injuries." "His injuries are very serious, he still needs to recuperate." Bailey Hongzhuang replied. "Don't worry, it's nothing." Di Beichen smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang. "I'll listen to your orders." TSK, the characteristics of a henpecked husband are exposed. Di Xiaofeng shook his head and sighed. Di Beichen glanced at Di Xiaofeng. "It seems that I have to call Yunyan over." Di Xiaofeng smiled brightly. "That won't be necessary. If Yunyan wasn't in seclusion this time, let's see if you would still say such words." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up as she looked at Di Xiaofeng teasingly. Although Di Xiaofeng was usually majestic in front of Bailey Yunyan, he was not an ordinary kind of gentle. Di Xiaofeng was the one who was henpecked. Forget it. I can't win against you, husband and wife." Then, everyone began to clean up the battlefield. The injured cultivators also quickly began to heal. Today's battle was not a small harvest. Chapter 5506. The thick smell of blood lingered in the air, but the corpses on the ground were cleaned up in a short period of time. The Jun family's residence had clearly suffered quite a bit of damage. Many of the buildings had already been reduced to rubble. However, Diyujue had intentionally avoided the Jun family's residence when he was fighting. That was why it hadn't been completely destroyed. This time, they used this opportunity to deal with the Jun family and the Xiao family, not to destroy the Ao family's residence. Even though the residence was destroyed, the elders of the Ao family were in a good mood. It was just a house and they could just rebuild it. It would not take much time. However, they finally found the real head of the family and escaped the control of the Jun family. This was the most joyous thing. As the battlefield was cleaned up, the sky that was originally covered by dark clouds became bright. The dark clouds quietly dispersed, revealing the blue sky. The sky was clear, and the sky was clear after the rain. Looking at the bright blue sky, everyone's faces could not help but reveal a sincere smile. Bailey Hongzhuang and the doctors of the Ao family were busy treating the injuries of the injured cultivators. Ordinary injuries could be healed with healing medicine, but all the more serious injuries needed to be treated by the doctors. In the meeting hall, the elders of the Di family and the Lin family were gathered together. Today, Junhong Qing risked his life to protect Jun Lingxuan, and I injured him quite badly. I'm afraid he won't show his face for a short period of time. Di Yujue's eyes rippled with a trace of coldness. This time, it was only the interest. What he wanted was Junhong Qing's life. Xiao Yanlong is also seriously injured, so we don't need to worry about them for a while. Lin Wenlan's voice was slightly light. During this period of time, the Jun family and the Xiao family could be said to have caused a lot of trouble. Now that they could stop for a while, it was also very good for them. Di Yujue nodded slightly, and his gaze fell on the second elder, who seemed to have lost his soul. He knew that Daihaoan had fallen, and he could not do anything about it. Perhaps this was already a pretty good ending. Second elder, I know that this matter has greatly affected you, but you must persevere. Don't be too sad over this. Thank you for your concern, Patriarch. I understand, the second elder replied. But, he still looked as if he had lost his soul. Seeing this, Di Yujue sighed. Speaking of which, the second elder's son had sacrificed himself for the clan. If it wasn't for Junhong Qing dealing with them, the second elder's son would still be alive and well. Second elder, don't take it too hard. If you do, you'll be letting Hao-un down. Di Chuyuan also comforted him. He had always been very close to the second elder. Seeing the second elder like this, he also felt very pained. Hearing this, the second elder's expression changed a little, but the pain became even more obvious. I'm already so old, why should I need him to sacrifice his life for me? Second elder, this is how Hao-un feels about you. Even though Hao-an's identity is. But he truly sees you as his father. If before, everyone still had some hatred towards Daihaoan. But now, after knowing the result, all they felt was pity. Chapter 5507. In just one day, he had suffered too many blows. The son he had always doted on had suddenly become someone else's son, and then died trying to save him. All of this made him feel like he was in a dream. It was too unreal. Second elder, my condolences. Lin Wenlan said slowly. Daihaoan was no longer around. She didn't want the second elder to be dispirited because of this. After a long while, the second elder looked at Di Yujue and said, Master, don't worry. I won't despair like this. The Jun family did such a thing to Hao-un and my son. I will make them pay with their blood. His blood-red eyes were filled with hatred. Both of his sons had died at the hands of the Di family. If he didn't take revenge, how could he face his two sons? Even if he couldn't kill Junhong Qing, he would do everything he could to deal with the Jun family. Seeing the light in the second elder's eyes again, even if it was the light of hatred, Di Yujue quietly sighed in relief. Hatred was also a kind of belief. As long as the second elder had his own obsession, he could still live. Second elder, what are your plans now? The second elder thought for a moment and said, I plan to find Hao-an's mother first. If I can save her, Hao-un will feel more comforted in the underworld. This was also Daihaoan's wish before he died. As a father, he would do his best to help his son achieve what he wanted to do. Di Yujue nodded slightly. Since you've made up your mind, then do it. Thank you, Master. At the same time, Ao Ling Xiao had also gathered with the elders of the Ao family. The elders led by the great elder had already addressed Ao Ling Xiao as the patriarch. Even though they had already recovered from the shock, they still couldn't help but feel a little guilty in their hearts. After all, their attitude towards Ao Ling Xiao a few years ago was really too much. Fortunately, Ao Ling Xiao didn't take it to heart, which made them feel a little relieved. Family head, we were tricked by the Jun family before. Over the years, the Jun family has been trying to seize resources from us. In fact, there are many people in our family who are dissatisfied with this. Now that things have come to this, I wonder if we can still keep in touch with the D family like before? The great elder looked at Ao Lingxiao tentatively. If they couldn't get the D family's protection, they would be finished once the Jun family came looking for trouble. Even if the Jun family had suffered a big blow, it would still be easy for them to deal with a small family like theirs. The other elders also looked at Ao Lingxiao nervously. This was the problem they were all worried about. Seeing how worried everyone was, Ao Lingxiao grinned. "Don't worry. Leave this to me." Although he hadn't discussed this matter with Di Beichen yet, he believed that Di Beichen wouldn't refuse. From the moment Di Beichen chose to help him, he had already decided to work for Di Beichen in the future. He didn't lose his life this time, so he would definitely go through water and tread on fire for him in the future. Chapter 5508. Seeing Ao Lingxiao's confidence, the elders of the Ao family were relieved. "That's great." The great elder breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking back to the time when they were in contact with the D family, it was much better than when they were attached to the Jun family. Most importantly, after this incident, they understood more about the D family's magnanimity. Fortunately, the D family helped us this time. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to come back. Ao Lingxiao's gaze was distant. In the future, I hope that everyone can sincerely work for the D family. Don't worry, family head. We will. Everyone nodded. With the D family's magnanimity, if they worked hard for them, the D family wouldn't treat them badly. Most importantly, the D family had helped them too much this time. Everything they did was what they should do. Bailey Hongzhuang and the doctors of the Ao family were helping the cultivators treat their injuries. Looking at the heavily injured cultivators in front of her, her eyes flashed slightly. This time, they had indeed won a great victory, but many cultivators had sacrificed their lives for it. Even if she was used to seeing life and death, she couldn't help but feel emotional when she saw this scene. "Wife, what's wrong?" Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's inexplicable worry, Di Beichen's eyes also showed a trace of concern. "It's nothing." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "Maybe it's because of what happened to Howen. Looking at this scene now, I feel a little emotional." Di Beichen also understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. His black eyes gradually deepened. Every family's prosperity is bought with the blood of their clansmen. Although some people have died, it's for the sake of the family. Compared to those powerless families, this is already the best result. The weak are prey to the strong. This was the law of the world. At least, they still had the strength to fight. As for those small families or ordinary families, once they encountered danger, they didn't even have the strength to fight. This was even more tragic. Yes. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. "I hope Howen will be born in a good family who loves him." Definitely. The next day, the teams from the D family and the Lin family left. Apart from a few cultivators who were severely injured, the rest of the cultivators returned to their families. Di Beichen wasn't in a hurry to leave. Bailey Hongzhuang still had to treat the injured cultivators. In addition, Ao Lingxiao had just returned to the Ao clan. They also had to confirm the situation. "Lingxiao, your family situation should be fine, right?" Di Beichen looked at Ao Lingxiao, whose complexion was extremely good, and asked in a relaxed tone. Ao Lingxiao nodded. "Ever since everyone knew the truth, I didn't encounter any resistance when I assumed the position of patriarch. I had planned to fight Jun Lingxuan after I came back. I wanted to avenge my parents. I didn't expect that Jun Lingxuan would be so ruthless. Speaking of which, I really have to thank Hongzhuang." Ao Lingxiao turned his gaze and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. "If it wasn't for this truth pill, I'm afraid that no matter what I said, no one would believe me." I just happened to have the pill formula for the truth pill. You're just lucky. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She recalled the frustrated Ao Lingxiao in the lower realm. He was clearly different from the high-spirited Ao Lingxiao now. Chapter 5509. If it weren't for your help, I wouldn't have been able to return to the upper bound. I will always remember this kindness. If you need me to do anything in the future, just tell me. I will do it even if it costs me my life. His firm and steady voice was very sincere. Ao Lingxiao's young face was also filled with his own determination. Since everyone doubted him, and Di Beichen and Bailey Ruoxin had always believed in him, he had made up his mind that his life would be theirs in the future. Ling Xiao, you also helped us before. You don't have to be so serious. We are good brothers. Di Beichen smiled. They helped Ao Ling Xiao not because they wanted anything in return. You are a good brother who deserves everything I have, Ao Ling Xiao replied. Seeing this, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. In their hearts, Ao Ling Xiao was also a friend whom they could trust with their back. By the way, Beichen, there is something I want to ask you for help with. Just say it. You know the current situation of the Ao family. Previously, Ao Zhengquang was bought over by the Jun family. That's why he broke off contact with your family and worked for the Jun family all these years. After this incident, everyone understood what was going on. In the future, this kind of problem won't happen again. So, I hope your family can still accept us. I can guarantee that this kind of thing will never happen again. Ao Lingxiao's brows were furrowed with worry, and one could vaguely see a trace of awkwardness on his face. Previously, the family had mysteriously cut off contact with the Di family, and then contacted the Jun family. If he didn't know Beichen's character, he would be too embarrassed to say this. I thought it was something big. Di Beichen looked relaxed. He held Ao Lingxiao with one hand. Didn't you just say that we are brothers who went through life and death together? What's there to worry about? Hearing the former's carefree voice, the worry between Ao Lingxiao's brows disappeared. A familiar smile appeared on his face again. Haha, I also feel that what happened back then was inappropriate. Don't think too much about it. None of this is a problem. If there's anything between us in the future, just say it. There's no need to worry about anything else. Alright. While the three of them were talking, a sudden rush of footsteps approached them. As soon as the door was opened, Lin Yi's figure had already appeared in their sight. Second cousin, why didn't you tell me that such a big thing happened? Lin Yi frowned slightly and pursed her lip. Her pretty face was full of dissatisfaction and depression. She stomped her feet and showed her girlish demeanor everywhere. She was very cute. Don't you already know? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows slightly and asked. It's already over. How am I supposed to know? Lin Yi raised her head and refuted. You should tell me this kind of thing earlier. I can also contribute. And you? Lin Yi's gaze fell on Ao Lingxiao. You didn't even tell me. Ao Lingxiao's expression froze. He didn't know how to explain himself to this lively and cute young girl. It's not Ling Zhao's fault. Who doesn't know your character? Chapter 5510. Lin Taxing's figure appeared behind Lin Yi. His jade-like face was showing a smile at the moment. His gaze fell on the girl in front of him, but there was a trace of affection. Lin Yi turned around and looked at Lin Taxing, who seemed to have seen through everything. The dissatisfaction on her face became stronger. Big brother, how can you look down on me like this? I'm not looking down on you. It's just that you are not scheming. How and may be a spy of the family. No one knows if our Lin family has a spy, so it's better to be careful. You don't want this news to be known by the Jun family in advance, so that they can make a more comprehensive plan to deal with us, right? That's true, but Lin Yi muttered. The more she spoke, the lower her voice became. In the end, there was no sound at all. Looking at her weak appearance, the smile in Bailey Hongzhuang's clear phoenix eyes became more and more intense. This girl is really everyone's joy. I can't win against you. Anyway, it's not right for you to not tell me." Lin Yi's face was flushed. She was so depressed that she simply talked nonsense. With her hands on her hips, she said, "If you don't let me vent my anger today, I won't be appeased." "Well, how about letting Ling Xiao take you around here later?" Di Baichen gave Ao Ling Xiao a look. Ao Ling Xiao immediately understood and quickly said, You haven't been to our Ao family, right? There are many beautiful places nearby. Why don't I take you around?" Lin Yi glanced at Ao Ling Xiao, then looked at the smiling Bailey Hongzhuang and others. She muttered, "Then I will reluctantly go around, but if I'm not satisfied, I still can't do it. You can rest assured that you will be satisfied." Ao Ling Xiao smiled for a while. His eyes were full of joy. "Humph." Lin Yi snorted coldly. "Fortunately, everyone is fine this time. Otherwise, I won't let it go. But next time, you can't do this again. I promise I will definitely keep my mouth shut in the future." Lin Yi snorted coldly. "Don't worry, it won't happen again." It was not until Ao Ling Xiao left with Lin Yi that everyone in the room breathed a sigh of relief. They were very clear about this eldest young Mrs. Pestering. Once they were entangled, it would be troublesome. This girl's temper has always been like this. Speaking of which, it's because we've spoiled her. Please forgive her. Lin Taxing shook his head helplessly. His sister had always been so lively. As her elder brother, he felt both angry and amused to see her being difficult. Star Stomper, he is actually very cute like this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "I think she's fine the way she is. She's carefree and happy. That's what the patriarch thinks too. That's why he's been doting on her all these years, not letting her take charge of things on her own." Lin Taxing nodded, a complicated light flashing in the depths of his eyes. "It would be great if it could stay like this, but the world is still a little cruel after all." The slightly deep voice revealed the worry in Lin Taxing's heart. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, it was not easy to be carefree. Unless her family could build a strong and sturdy barrier for her, only then would she be able to live a happy life. "Don't worry, our family will only get stronger and stronger." Chapter 55:11. Now that the Jun and Xiao families have suffered heavy losses, I'm afraid it will be difficult for them to recover in a short period of time. However, I'm more worried that the token to open the Land of Heritage is still in their hands. After this incident, won't it be difficult to get them to agree to hand over the token if we want to open the Land of Heritage again? Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes were filled with worry. Her expression was grave and serious. She had long known that the Land of Heritage was extremely important to the Di family. This was also the most important reason why she competed for the position of Saintess of Light. They won't. Di Baichen's expression was indifferent. Opening the Land of Heritage is beneficial to all three families. Even if they don't like us, they won't ignore the interests of their families. Lin Taxing naturally knew about the Land of Heritage. He also frowned. It would be great if we could snatch the tokens from the two families. Unfortunately, it's too difficult. In the past, it was only possible to open the Land of Heritage by combining the blood of the two families. If we can confirm that the blood of Hongzhuang and I can open it, then perhaps we can think of other methods in the future. Di Baichen's gaze was deep. The Jun and Xiao families were both their opponent. Now, they needed their help to open the Land of Heritage. With the character of these two families, they would inevitably be manipulated when the time came. He did not like this feeling. "Let's discuss this matter with Uncle first. This matter is not urgent for the time being. There will always be a way." Di Baichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand. "Ever since we returned to the family, you have been worrying about me and the family's affairs. I also feel very sorry for you. You don't have to worry too much about these things. Just leave them to me. With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for?" He knew very well that Hongzhuang knew how important his family was to him. He did not want his family to suffer any loss or harm. That was why she had been working so hard these days. In fact, in his heart, Hong Zhuang was the most important. In his heart, the land of heritage was nothing compared to Hong Zhuang's happiness. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled. I just want to share some of your burdens. Besides, I'm very happy to see everyone happy. Lin Taxing looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang, who was willing to sacrifice for Di Beichen. A trace of admiration and envy unconsciously appeared in his eyes. This kind of relationship was really something that others could not be envied. Beichen, Hong Zhuang is such a good girl. If you let her down, it would be intolerable. Hearing this, Di Beichen looked serious. Hong Zhuang, do you have any sisters? Introduce her to me. Keep the goodies within the family. I see you two lovey-dovey every day, and I'm so envious. Lin Ta-Xing's eyes were filled with excitement. So far, apart from Bailey Hong Zhuang, he had never seen such a good woman. It would be great if she had a sister or something. Taxing, you will be disappointed. Di Beichen smiled. Bailey Hong Zhuang shook her head. My parents only gave birth to one daughter. Most importantly, she wasn't even from this place. Ai, what a pity. Lin Taxing sighed, obviously disappointed. When Lin Yi came back, everyone found that she was in a good mood. She was no longer depressed and dissatisfied. Chapter 55:12. The blazing sun was like fire, and there were no clouds in the sky. After staying in the Ao family for a few days, Di Beichen saw that everyone's injuries were getting better, so he didn't continue to stay in the Ao family. Lingxiao, we'll be heading back first. Di Beichen looked at Ao Lingxiao and the elders of the Ao family and said his goodbyes. Seeing that his old friends were about to leave, Ao Lingxiao was a little reluctant. Ever since they started on Penglai Island, he had been working with everyone. During this period of time, he had experienced a deep friendship. He had even gotten used to working with everyone. Now that everyone was about to leave and he was the only one left, he couldn't help but feel sad. Lingxiao, once the family's matters are settled, you can come and find us if you miss us. When Xiren smiled, his eyes flashing, when the time comes, we'll drink until we're drunk. Ao Lingxiao nodded. I'll definitely come and find you soon. Haha, we'll wait for you. Everyone waved their hands, then turned and left together. The golden sunlight shone on everyone's bodies, casting long shadows on their bodies. This was only a short separation. They believed that they would fight side by side in the future. At the same time, the news that the Jun family and the Xiao family planned to deal with the young master of the Di family, but were taught a lesson by the Di family and the Lin family quickly spread among the major forces. When everyone heard this news, they were all shocked. However, when they thought about the grudges between the four great families, they understood. There had always been constant disputes between the four great clans, especially during this period of time when everyone knew about it. The Di family has been riding high recently. It's expected that the Jun family and the Xiao family would want to deal with them. However, I didn't expect them to be so weak that they were taught a lesson. This is really the case of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. I heard that they wanted to kill Di Beichen and Bailey Hong Zhuang in one fell swoop. This Bailey Hong Zhuang has just become the Holy Maiden of Light. Although I know that the Xiao family hates Bailey Hong Zhuang to the bone, the Holy Assembly won't just sit by and watch them make a move on the Holy Maiden of Light. That's for sure. It took the Holy Light Assembly so many years to find the Holy Maiden of the Holy Light. Someone dared to target her as soon as she took over. It would be wrong if the Holy Light Assembly didn't do anything. The news spread rapidly. The feud between the four major families had indeed been going on for a long time, but now that the Holy Light Assembly had joined, this matter had become even more interesting. Almost everyone thought that it was a good time for the Di clan to rise up. Almost every time, everyone thought that the Di clan would definitely lose. However, the Di clan would always be able to turn the tables around. Furthermore, they were able to turn the tables so thoroughly. Even though the Jun family had the help of the Xiao family, they were still no match for the D family. On the contrary, they were being suppressed everywhere. In the future, the D family will be very powerful. With the Saint of Light as their daughter-in-law, won't it be easier for them to develop? The cultivators of the D family were now in high spirits outside the family. They could even cause a gust of wind when they walked. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to the family, they were naturally warmly welcomed by the family members. Greetings, young master and young madam. Chapter 55:13. In the past, many people treated me as a goal to strive for. Now you've completely squeezed me out. My status has plummeted. Di Xiaofeng shook his head and sighed. His disappointed expression was filled with helplessness and sadness. Big brother, come on. Quit while you're ahead. Di Beichen teased. Haha, in short, we've won a great victory this time. Our family has also gained face. Right now, all the news outside is beneficial to our family. We've only been back for a few days and there are already many forces wanting to get closer to us and be used by us. Grandfather and father have been in a good mood recently. I haven't seen them so happy in a long time. Di Xiaofeng's expression was relaxed. His originally handsome face had a sunny and warm smile, making him look even more elegant and handsome. The surrounding young women couldn't help blushing when they saw him like this. Their adoration was overflowing. That's good. Di Beichen's beautiful thin lips hooked up. His slanted eyebrows rose slightly. Then we can rest assured. Right, Hongzhuang, a deacon from the Radiant Sacred Assembly came looking for you. Di Xiaofeng became more serious. He came looking for you after hearing about what happened this time. He must have received orders from the Radiant Sacred Assembly's president. Oh! Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly surprised. Where is he now? We've treated him as an important guest. He's currently resting in the guest room. I'll send someone to inform him now. Thank you, big brother. You're now the holy maiden of the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Since the Xiao and Jun families dared to touch you, the Radiant Sacred Assembly won't let this matter go so easily. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. This situation was within her expectations. The Radiant Sacred Assembly had a supreme position in the upper realm. In addition, the Holy Maiden of the Radiant Sacred Assembly was their belief. If someone dared to target her, it would be strange if the Radiant Sacred Assembly would let them go so easily. Thinking about it, the Jun and Xiao families must have been certain that she wouldn't have a chance to leave this time. That was why they dared to take such a big risk to do this. However, they didn't expect that in the end there would be such a result. They deserved it. Bai Li Yanche's eyes were bone-chilling. If the Radiant Sacred Assembly teaches them a lesson, that would be satisfying. They'll disappear sooner or later. Ling Er also said coldly. As the successor of the Saint of Light, she was very clear that Bailey Hongzhuang's future achievements would not be simple. The Xiao family and the Jun family are courting death. Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang saw the deacon sent by the Holy Light Assembly, but when she saw him, her face showed a smile of understanding. Greetings, Saintess. Shi Hongqiao bowed respectfully. When he raised his head, the solemn look on his face was replaced by a familiar smile. Shi Hongqiao sat down and said, Holy Maiden, the president was very worried when he heard that the Xiao and Jun families dared to attack you. He immediately sent me to check on your situation. You should have heard the news. I'm fine. This time, the Jun and Xiao families are the ones who suffered losses. However, they dared to attack me despite knowing my identity. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. Since the other party wanted to take her life, she naturally wouldn't let them have a good time. Chapter 55:14. Noticing the flash of coldness in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, Shi Hongqiao understood that the Saintess of the Holy Light was not easy to deal with. The incident this time had completely angered her. Saintess, the entire Sacred Assembly is furious after knowing about this. The President has already said that he will not let this matter go so easily. You can rest assured. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She was very confident in the Sacred Assembly's ability. If I'm not wrong, the president has probably already sent people to the Jun family or the Xiao family today. Shi Hongqiao looked serious. In fact, they had only known about this for a short period of time. In addition, they had been moving the Sacred Assembly's headquarters, so it took some time for them to travel back and forth. Do you need me to deal with this matter? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. Her expression was somewhat playful. That's up to the Saintess. However, the president has already made an appearance. Even if we rush over, I'm afraid it will be too late. Shi Hongqiao's eyes were filled with thoughts. He seemed to be thinking about how far the president had progressed. Noticing Shi Hongqiao's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand and said, I believe in the president. Since the president has already made an appearance, I don't need to deal with this matter. If she rushed over at this moment, the other party might think that she was bullying them. It was more appropriate to leave it to the Sacred Assembly to deal with. Yes, Saintess. Is there anything else you want to tell me? This is the letter the president asked me to pass to you. There's nothing else. Bailey Hongzhuang took the letter from Shi Hongqiao and opened it with her slender fingers. After skimming through the contents, she understood. The president did not say much in the letter. He only asked her to rest well. There was no need to worry about this matter. The Sacred Assembly would definitely let the Jun family and the Xiao family know the price of angering them. In addition, he hoped that she could study the Saintess crystal well. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang put away the letter. Tell the president that I will do my best. Yes. After Bailey Hongzhuang explained everything, Shi Hongqiao didn't stay any longer and quickly went back to report. During this time, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also made a trip to the gathering place of the Dark Attribute cultivators. However, Huang Fu-Ting and the others were still training and had yet to return. I wonder how their training went this time? Bailey Hongzhuang had a hint of worry in her eyes. I hope no one else will find out. Otherwise, it will be more troublesome. They've been hiding very well all these years. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any problems. Don't worry. Di Beichen had a confident smile on his face. From the moment he met Huang Fu-Ting, he trusted him very much and believed that his methods would not be bad. Beichen, now that the Jun family and the Xiao family have been attacked, although we don't know the methods of the Holy Assembly, they probably won't be able to do anything for a while. We've been in the upper realm for a while now. It just so happens that we don't have anything to do recently. Why don't we go back to the lower realm? Her ink-black phoenix eyes stared at Di Beichen, full of hope and expectation. Chapter 55:15. Now that her family had not heard from her for so long, they must be very worried. Previously, she had been delayed by many things, so she did not have the chance to leave. Now that many things had been resolved, there was no need to worry for the time being. Now that she had the opportunity to go back and see her parents, she could also feel more at ease. Moreover, ever since she became the head of the Bailey family, she was prepared to bring her parents over. The cultivation resources in the upper realm were much better than the lower realm. She believed that when her parents came over, their strength would definitely improve again. If they could settle down in the upper realm, that would be excellent. This way, it would be more convenient for her to reunite with her family. Most importantly, the upper realm was a higher level of existence. No one could guarantee that the cultivators from the upper realm would not easily enter the lower realm in the future. Once such a thing happened, it would definitely cause turmoil in the entire lower realm. She only hoped that the people she cared about would be safe and sound. Only with stronger strength would she have more confidence. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen smiled slightly. I happen to have the same plan. When I went to see Father yesterday, I already mentioned it to him. I know that you have always been worried about father-in-law and mother-in-law. We have been away for so long, so it is indeed time for us to go back. We can't let them keep worrying about us. You have already told father? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up, her eyes filled with surprise and joy. Di Beichen looked at the beautiful woman in front of him dotingly and said, "That's right." "Then what did father say?" "Father is very supportive of our plan and even supports us bringing father-in-law and mother-in-law over." As soon as he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened, full of surprise. "That's really great." She had always kept this matter in her heart, but unfortunately, she could not leave, so it had been delayed until now. During this period of time, too many things have happened. Otherwise, I would have brought you back to have a look. Di Beichen was a little apologetic. From the first time Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned this matter to him, he had kept it in his heart and had never forgotten it. "You don't have to say any more. I understand." Bailey Hongzhuang put her index finger on Di Beichen's lips, stopping him from apologizing. Di Beichen lightly pecked her 10 tender fingers. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a numbing sensation on her hand. She hurriedly wanted to withdraw her hand, but Di Beichen held it tightly in his hand. "Wife, you're always so cute. Your husband won't be able to control himself. You want to bully a commoner girl in broad daylight." Bailey Hongzhuang laughed. "If we can't do it during the day, then let's do it at night." After the Radiant Sacred Assembly took action, the news spread quickly. "Have you heard? The president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly led the cultivators of the Sacred Assembly to the Jun family and Shao family. It is said that he taught the two family heads a lesson. I heard that Jun Hongqing and Shao Yanlong had already been severely injured by the Di family members. Initially, they didn't want to come out, but the president of the Federation of Light appeared and forced them to come out. Moreover, he didn't hesitate to add to their injuries. Not only that, the businesses of the two family heads were also affected, and the impact was not small. Chapter 55:16. The Di family was naturally the first to know about this news. After everyone heard about the situation of the Shao family and the Jun family, all the cultivators of the Di family began to clap their hands in joy. "Who told them to try to kill our young master and young madam? They deserve to be taught a lesson like this. I really hope that we can make them disappear, but it's a pity that it's too difficult. Don't worry too much about it. Now that they've been taught a lesson, it's impossible for them to recover in a short period of time. I believe that they'll be defeated by our Di family sooner or later." Bailey Hongzhuang was on her way to the assembly hall when she heard the fervent discussions of the cultivators of the Di family. From the sincere joy on their faces, one could tell that they were excited and emotional at this moment. Perhaps influenced by the joy of the disciples, Bailey Hongzhuang's face also bloomed into a bright smile. "It seems that the Jun family and the Shao family have really suffered a great loss this time." She already knew that with the Holy Light Assembly taking action, the punishment would definitely not be firm. It would naturally be extremely difficult to destroy the Jun family. However, after teaching them a harsh lesson, they probably wouldn't dare to have any ideas about her again. Today, he was no longer the cultivator from the lower realm who could be easily manipulated by them. On the contrary, his position was now no weaker than the two families. If the other party dared to have any ideas about her again, they would probably suffer a disaster the next time. Di Beichen nodded slightly. "Although we've only heard the news from outside, I'm afraid that the real situation is not far from the truth. Once we reach the assembly hall, we'll know more about it." At this moment, the Di family's assembly hall was also immersed in joy. Di Yujue's face was filled with a joyful smile. One could tell how happy he was from the curve of his eyes. Jun Hongqing and Shao Yanlong have really shot themselves in the foot this time. I originally wanted to use this opportunity to deal a heavy blow to the Di family, but I never thought that I would end up losing myself instead. Just thinking about it makes me feel exceptionally happy. Di Yujue laughed heartily, his loud and clear voice penetrating into everyone's ears. "They deserved it, especially the Jun family. They've been having ideas about us all these years. What's worse is that they actually did such a thing to Beichen. They deserve to be punished now. I think this result is a little light. It's better to let him die. Lin Yunqing's eyes were filled with disgust as a thick sense of resentment gathered in her heart. When she recalled everything that she had endured over the years, she hated that she could not kill the culprit with her own hand. That's right. The Jun family's actions are too shameless. Hao On, that child, is also pitiful. Xia Wanrong shook her head and sighed. Although the Jun family wasn't very good in the past, they seem to have become particularly shameless in Junhong City. The news came back that Junhong Qing, as the leader, was seriously injured and unconscious by the president of the Holy Assembly. 2 elders were also seriously injured. Now the Jun family can be said to be in a gloomy situation. They can't be arrogant anymore. Di Linxian was obviously very happy about this. Thinking about the Jun family's various plots against them all these years, he felt really relieved to receive such a punishment. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen arrived, they heard everyone's conversation and were immediately happy. Chapter 55-17. Xia Wanrong looked at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang with satisfaction. The reason why the Di family had such a big change was all because of these 2 little fellows. If she hadn't seen all of this with her own eyes, she would have found it hard to believe that these 2 little fellows were so smart and capable. Thinking back, although they had always been on guard, the Jun family was always thinking of ways to target them. It was really impossible to guard against them. However, ever since her grandson and granddaughter-in-law returned, these problems were solved one after another. Not to mention her, everyone felt that it was hard to believe when they connected all of this together. Now that they could even snatch the position of the Holy Maiden, she really felt that there was nothing that they couldn't solve. Following Xia Wanrong's words, the elders in the hall nodded one after another. Their eyes fell on the 2 most dazzling young people. During this period of time, everything that they had done shocked everyone present. Indeed, these 2 little fellows are extraordinarily powerful, Di Linxian said with a smile. From the beginning of the competition for the quota to enter the Immortal Cloud secret territory until now, the Jun family's plan has not succeeded. The Shao family has also been defeated step by step. You 2 are really our family's lucky stars. This time, the plan to find the spy was all Beichen's plan. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Daihaoan had actually done them a big favor before he died. If Daihaoan hadn't told them everything, it wouldn't have been easy for them to defeat the other party. Young madam, you're too modest, Di Chuyuan couldn't help but say. In this matter, your contributions cannot go unnoticed. Beichen, Hongzhuang, when do you plan to return to the lower realm? Di Yujue also remembered this matter after his joy. He originally thought that Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang would leave 2 days ago. However, now it seemed that they were waiting to hear the news from the Jun family before leaving. Father, one of the reasons we came here today is to bid farewell. Di Beichen cupped his hands and said. Beichen, you plan to return to the lower realms? Di Linxian was slightly surprised. Clearly, he had not heard of this news before. Di Beichen nodded slightly. Hongzhuang's relatives are still in the lower realm. Back then, we accidentally came to the upper realm. We didn't even have time to tell them before we left. Now that we've been here for so long, it's time to go back. I see. Di Linxian immediately understood and hurriedly said, Then we should make a trip back. Father, I heard that cultivators from the upper realm can't easily go to the lower realm. Can we go there directly? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask the question in her heart. When she first came to the upper realm, she was eager to leave, but she learned that under normal circumstances, it was impossible to go to the lower realm through this teleportation formation. Dujue smiled faintly. If it were anyone else, it would be a very complicated process to go to the lower realm. However, it's different for you. You're the Holy Maiden of the Light now. No one will stop you. The Holy Maiden of the Light also has special privileges in this regard? Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. She had never heard of this before. If you want to go to the lower realm, you'll need the approval of the sacred assembly. As the holy maiden of the light, would the sacred assembly not allow you to leave? I see. Chapter 55:18. Previously, she had been worried about this problem, so her heart had not calmed down. She did not expect that this problem, which she thought was the most difficult to solve, would be solved so easily. It made her feel that her previous worries were unnecessary. You have a long way to go back, so you have to be careful during the process. Although most of the cultivators in the lower realm are not as strong as you, there is no guarantee that there won't be other unexpected situations. Dyujue exhorted. He had been to Tiangang's sect and knew that the journey there was quite a long way. However, with the current strength of Di Baichen and the others, the speed of their journey must be extremely fast. Father, don't worry. We will be careful. Di Baichen looked relaxed. When you go to the lower realm this time, if possible, bring my granddaughter-in-law's relatives over. In this upper realm, it will be easier for my granddaughter-in-law to reunite with her family. Otherwise, it will be more difficult to meet in two places. Xia Wanrong looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with heartache. Although they all tried their best to treat Bailey Hongzhuang well, the closest relatives could not be replaced. Bailey Hongzhuang integrated into their family as quickly as possible, but this was not her real home after all. For so long she had never mentioned this point. Presumably, she often missed her family in her heart. Speaking of which, they were not thoughtful enough. Wouldn't it be better if they could bring their granddaughter-in-law's family over earlier? Grandmother, thank you for your concern. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled sweetly. Since she came to the Di family, her grandmother had always been very doting on her. She put herself in her shoes for everything. She could feel that this old woman really loved her. She was also very grateful for this and was also very fortunate to have such a good grandmother. Grandmother, that's what we're planning to do this time. Today we are here to say goodbye to everyone and prepare to leave. Be careful on the road. Prepare more gifts for your father-in-law, mother-in-law, and master. Lin Yunqing exhorted and quickly ordered the maid beside her, go to the resource room to help pack. Mother, you don't have to be so polite. Bailey Hongzhuang saw this and quickly said, that won't do. Lin Yunqing had a serious expression on her face. Speaking of which, we should go personally. However, there are a lot of family matters to attend to. Recently, the Jun family and the Xiao family have been suppressed, which is a good opportunity for us to expand. Therefore, we can't go with you. However, even if we can't do it personally, we have to do it with our hearts. It is our blessing to have such a good daughter-in-law marry into our Di family. That's right. Xia Wanrong also nodded. We can't be rude in this kind of matter. Yunqing, in my opinion, the two of us should go and make preparations. Lin Yunqing's eyes lit up. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law hit it off immediately. Mother, let's go now. Bailey Hongzhuang opened her mouth, but Di Baichen was the first to speak. Wife, this is grandmother and mother's kind intentions, don't refuse. All right then. Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Seeing how busy the two of them were for her return, she couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness in her heart. This kind of warm feeling really made people happy from the bottom of their hearts. Don't run away first. We will be ready soon. Before going out, Xia Wanrong didn't forget to remind them. Chapter 55:19. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw the things that her mother-in-law and grandmother had prepared for her return to her parents' home, she had already guessed that there would be a lot of things. However, when she saw it with her own eyes, she realized that she had underestimated the two's combat effectiveness. Were they trying to empty the Di family's resource room? As far as the eye could see, medicinal herbs, pills, rare treasures, and almost all the treasures that one could imagine were all here. Grandmother, mother, this is too much and too precious. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but speak up. So many things were extremely precious even in the upper realm. It's not expensive, it's not expensive. Xia Wanrong shook her head. She held Bailey Hongzhuang in one hand and stroked the back of her hand with the other. Her expression was serious and full of affection. No matter how precious it is, it's not as precious as you. We're really grateful that the in-laws are willing to marry you to Beichen. Besides, your maternal grandfather has been taking care of Beichen all these years. We can never repay this kindness. We can only wait for them to come to the upper realm before we express our gratitude. That's right. We really can't get away now. Lin Yunqing turned to look at Di Beichen and said, Beichen, you have to explain this to us when you get back. Mother, grandmother, don't worry. I'll take care of it. Besides, my master and the others aren't people who will fuss over small matters. That's good, that's good. Lin Yunqing felt a little more at ease. They could never repay this kindness. However, she had also learned from Diyujue that Hongzhuang's relatives were very easy to get along with. If not for this, they would not have taken care of Beichen so much back then and even betrothed Hongzhuang to him. It was only after Bailey Hongzhuang had agreed to accept all of this that Xia Wanrong and Diyujue left in satisfaction. Let's go. Let's go see how Xiren and the others are tidying up. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's soft and seemingly boneless hand and hurried towards the residence of Xiren and the others. Aya, hurry up and pack up. We have to go back quickly. Before Bailey Hongzhuang and Diyujue arrived, they had already heard Shangguan Yingying's voice commanding Xiren. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and went to the door. She looked at the two people who were busy in the room and said with a smile, How are you guys doing? We're ready and can leave at any time. Soon. I'll be able to leave after I collect all these things. Shangguan Yingying winked at Xiren, motioning him to pack up the rest of the things before walking to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. At the same time, as a henpecked husband, Xiren could only accept his fate and pack up. Hongzhuang, have you said goodbye? Shangguan Yingying asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, we've already talked about it. We've already agreed, and there's nothing to do recently. We don't have to worry about the Jun family and the Xiao family causing trouble. Although it will take some time to go back, it's still very fast with our current speed. That's true. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with joy and comfort. Actually, we haven't been in the upper realm for long, but we've gained a lot. When we go back, everyone will be very happy to see our improvement. Chapter 55-20. Looking at Shangguan Yingying's excited look, Bailey Hongzhuang was also infected by her emotions, and the smile in her eyes continued to ripple. We haven't gone back for so long, I'm afraid that our family is very worried about us, but thinking about going back and being able to see them, I'm really surprised. That's not true. Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows. I've never left before, but this time I've been away for so long, and I've gained so much. When I go back, they can't say that I only stay in the sect to cultivate all day and don't know how to go out to gain experience. By the way, how's Yunju's preparation? Di Beichen looked at Xiren, who was packing in full swing, and could not help but think of Mo Yunjue, who had not appeared until now. Shangguan Yingying seemed to have suddenly remembered something and said, After I told Yunju about this matter, Yunju said that he would tell you in detail when you came over, but I don't know what to say. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, and they were a little puzzled. At this time, what did Mo Yunjue want to say to them? Di Beichen, let's go find Yunju. Bailey Hongzhuang suggested. Okay. The two immediately walked towards Mo Yunjue's residence, and when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying followed after seeing this. Yunju came from the lower realm like them, and logically speaking, now that he had the chance to go back to the lower realm, it should be a very happy thing. Mo Yunjue looked at the four people outside the house, and his always cold face softened a little. You're here. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed at a glance that Mo Yunjue's house was not packed, as if there were no signs of him leaving, and could not help but frown. Yunju, we're ready to leave, why haven't you packed? Hongzhuang, this time when you go back to the lower realm, I won't go with you. Mo Yunjue looked calm, and his magnetic and cold voice seemed very indifferent. However, Shangguan Yingying could not help but exclaim, "It's not easy to have the opportunity to go back to the lower realm, and you don't want to go?" Mo Yunjue was the young master of Shitian Tower. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang, he would not go to Penglai Island. Naturally, he would not come to the upper realm. "I have nothing to go back. Go his, to s, during this time, I'll go out to experience and experience, I'll come here and come here." "Yunju, have you really thought it through?" Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask again. "It's not easy for us to go back. If you don't go back this time, I'm afraid it will be even more difficult to go back in the future." Facing Bailey Hongzhuang's worry, Mo Yunjue's gaze became softer and softer. He smiled faintly and said, "I understand, but I've already decided. If it's convenient for you to go back this time, please help me send this letter back." Mo Yunjue took out a letter and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. After Bailey Hongzhuang took it, she nodded and said, "Well, if you've made up your mind, I won't persuade you anymore. Yunju, are you planning to go out to experience the world by yourself?" Di Baichen frowned slightly, and his warm voice was filled with concern. Chapter 55-21. Looking at Mo Yunjue's confident and calm appearance, Di Baichen nodded slightly. From the beginning to the end, he knew that Mo Yunjue was an extremely powerful genius. Even after coming to the upper realm, his performance had never been inferior. Although the Heavenly Slaughter Tower was in the lower realm, as the young master of an assassination organization, his means and ability were far from what ordinary cultivators could compare to. In addition, his heart was tenacious and strong, so there was no need to worry about him wandering in the upper realm. "If you want to know something or need any help, you can tell my big brother. He will do his best to help," Di Baichen said in a deep voice. "Thank you." Mo Yunjue smiled faintly. "You don't have to worry about me. I have been alone all these years and have long been used to it. Going out to gain experience is also beneficial to my improvement. If there are no accidents, I should also go to the Mercenary Union." "All right then." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, waved the letter in her hand, and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I will definitely deliver this letter." It wasn't until they left Mo Yunjue's residence that Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but say, "I really admire Yunjue. If it were an ordinary person, they definitely wouldn't give up this opportunity to go back. But looking at him alone, I still feel a little uncomfortable." Bailey Hongzhuang's heart sank when she heard this. If it were not for her, Mo Yunjue would not have come to the upper realm at all. However, she was afraid that she would not be able to repay this kindness in this lifetime. According to my previous understanding, although Yunju is the young master of the Heavenly Slaughter Tower, I'm afraid that there is nothing that he cares about, so this time he does not plan to go back. You don't have to worry about this. Yunju must have his reasons for doing this. Di Baichen said slowly. That's right, you can rest assured. Ziren also said. Yunju is so opinionated, he must have thought everything through. After Ziren and Wenxinya had finished packing up, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three began their journey to the lower realm. The four of them sat on Di Baichen's flying magic tool. With this flying magic tool, they could travel much faster than before. Baichen, which city are we teleporting from this time? When Ziren asked. Shangguan Yingying's eyes lit up, and she couldn't help but say, if it's possible, why don't we go back through the transmission array in Rong and City? That's not bad. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly, and in her mind, she couldn't help but think of three familiar figures. We haven't seen Brother Wanyan and the others for a long time. I don't know how they are doing now. If we can pass through Rong and City, we can also meet them. Di Baichen looked at their expectant faces and laughed involuntarily. Since you have already made up your minds, what are you still thinking about? Ha! Everyone looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Rong and City. After more than 10 days of traveling, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally arrived at Rong'an City. Looking at the familiar city wall, the four of them had joyful smiles on their faces. "We're back again," Bailey Hongzhuang sighed softly. She had mixed feelings about Rong'an City. She naturally felt very lucky to know Wanyan Han and the others, but she did not have a good impression of the Holy Assembly. Chapter 55-22. Perhaps it was because she had a bad impression of the Holy Assembly back then, so even after returning to the D family, she had never planned to go to the Holy Assembly. However, it was a good thing that the president was a very nice person. Moreover, she had never heard of such strange remarks in the headquarters of the Holy Assembly. Even after she had become the saintess of the Holy Assembly, no one had ever mentioned anything about her and Beichen's attributes. Walking on the spacious and flat streets of Rong'an City, the four of them attracted everyone's attention almost instantly. "Look, isn't that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen from the Blazing Flame sect?" "That's right, it's them." After a cultivator recognized Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, many other cultivators realized this and were instantly shocked. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were influential figures in the Blazing Flame sect, especially after Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's attributes had awakened. It could be said that everyone knew about them. Now that the two of them had appeared here again, it was natural that they would be recognized immediately. "Lower your voice, she's the saintess of the Holy Assembly now. How dare you call her by her name? Do you have a death wish?" After someone's reminder, everyone hurriedly stopped talking. The Holy Assembly had finally found the saintess of the Holy Assembly and even caused such a huge commotion. In a short period of time, the news had spread throughout the entire upper realm. Rong'an City was also a relatively large city, so the speed at which the news spread was naturally extremely fast. In addition, such an important matter had attracted everyone's attention. However, when everyone saw the portrait of the saintess of the Holy Assembly, everyone was shocked. Almost everyone who had heard of Bailey Hongzhuang's name was dumbfounded, especially the Holy Assembly and the Blazing Flames sect. Back then, the vice president of the Holy Assembly had rejected Bailey Hongzhuang. Fortunately, the president was not as unreasonable as the vice president. Otherwise, the Holy Assembly branch in Rong'an City would be in for a good show. As for the Blazing Flames sect, it was needless to say. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were very famous figures in the Blazing Flames sect. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had become the saintess of the Holy Assembly and Di Beichen was the young master of the D family, their identities were simply shocking. Although the cultivators around them had lowered their voices, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were still able to hear them. Bailey Hongzhuang Shangguan Yingying's name, Shangguan Xingying's, Shangguan Shui Shui, Shangguan Yingying's, Shangguan Shui of the young master of the Holy Assembly. Saintess of the Holy, Saintess of the Holy Holy Saintess. Saintess of the Holy 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 Saintess of the Holy Saintess of the Holy Saintess. Shui in the day, Shui, quick, Shui, brother and Shui was Shui family. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen arrived at the Blazing Flames sect, Wanyan Han, Wanyan Ling, and Yi Haomiao were already waiting for them. Looking at the three familiar figures, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's faces were filled with joy. "Senior brother Wanyan Haomiao, we meet again." Di Beichen quickly walked forward and gave them a hug. "Haha, I didn't expect it to really be you guys." Wanyan Han laughed loudly. "When I heard this news from others, I thought it was fake. How could busy people like you have the time to come here? I didn't expect it to be true. I'm so happy." Chapter 55-23. I'm so happy to see you again. Yi Haomiao's face was filled with joy and excitement. Nothing could compare to the joy of reuniting with old friend. "Haha, we're also very happy to see you again. Let's go. Let's not stand here. Let's go to the restaurant we used to frequent," Wanyan Han suggested. Everyone hit it off and immediately walked toward the restaurant. "Why did you come to Rong'an City this time?" Wan Yenling could not help but ask. With Di Beichen and the others' current status, they should not have returned here. Di Beichen did not intend to hide it. To be honest, we were planning to return to the lower world this time. However, we remembered that Hong Zhuang came to Rong, a city through the teleportation formation, and wanted to see you, so we came back here. I see. Wan Yenling understood and his eyes were filled with surprise. You're going back to the lower world. Hong Zhuang, I told you that it would be very difficult to return to the lower world. I didn't expect you to do it so quickly. You're amazing. Wan Yanhan could not help but sigh. When Bailey Hongzhuang first came here, she wanted to leave. However, he told her clearly that it was very difficult to return to the lower world. Generally speaking, there was no hope at all. However, in just a few short years, Bailey Hongzhuang could go back. It was amazing. I was just lucky to become the Saint of Light. That's why I have the chance to go back now. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Oh right, senior brothers, do you have any plans to go back? If you want to go back to Tiger Hill, you can come back with us this time. Wanyan Han and Wanyan Ling looked at each other and shook their heads. Our families are long gone. We've always depended on each other. There's no point in going back now. We finally came to the upper world. We plan to stay here forever. That's right. Back then, we risked our lives to come here. Wanyan Ling smiled. It seems that you're doing well in the Blazing Flame sect. Di Beichen raised his lips and chuckled. I noticed that when you appeared, the cultivators of Raging Flame Gate were very respectful to you. Beichen, this is all thanks to you guys. Yi Haomiao put down his teacup, his interest peaked. When you left, everyone already knew that your identities were extraordinary. Since then, everyone's attitude towards us has become much better than before. Steward Wu has always been good to us. Later on, he even put us in important positions. Not long ago, there was news that Hong Zhuang had become the Saintess of the Light. This is even more incredible. I really didn't expect that you guys would still help us after leaving. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be where we are now. Wanyan Han sighed. How could he have imagined that the woman he had coincidentally saved back then was the Saint of Light? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. They didn't expect that they would have such a big impact. However, this was also a good thing. Senior brother Wanyan, if you hadn't saved me, I would have already died. Speaking of which, I should be the one thanking you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled tenderly. Come, let me toast you with a cup of wine. Chapter 55-24. When Ziren looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Wanyan Han, who were thanking each other, and couldn't help but laugh. In my opinion, there's no need to thank each other. This is all fate. There's no cause without effect. If senior brother Wanyan hadn't saved Hong Zhuang, all these things wouldn't have happened. So, this is all fate. Hearing Ziren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Wanyan Han looked at each other and smiled. That's right, it's all fate. Then let's toast to fate. Di Beichen raised his cup and laughed. Cheers. After not seeing each other for a long time, everyone was very happy to be reunited. With good wine, good food, and good friends, everyone drank to their heart's content. They didn't leave the restaurant until the evening. Beichen, it's getting late. Why don't you stay here for the night and leave tomorrow? Wanyan Ling pondered. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two behind him, and shook his head. We'll go directly to the lower world. We have to hurry anyway. Plus, there's the training ground. The environment is the same whether it's day or night. Then you have to be careful, Yi Haomiao said with concern. Haomiao, have you drunk too much? Wanyan Han looked at Yi Haomiao helplessly. With Beichen's current strength, there's basically no need to worry about danger in the lower world. Ah! Yi Haomiao suddenly understood and patted his head. Look at my brain. I'm worried for nothing after drinking too much. Senior brother Haomiao, if you don't want to stay in the Blazing Flame School and want to leave here, why don't you join us? Before leaving, Di Beichen spoke again. His deep black eyes were filled with sincerity. It was rare to have such close friends in the upper world. He also hoped that they could stay together forever. Wanyan Han nodded. We'll consider it. If we plan to leave, we'll go directly to the D family to find you. Although Rong An city is not a small city, its opportunities are not as good as those of the aristocratic families. You should consider it carefully, Wen Ziren also advised. Wanyan Han and the other two exchanged glances. Actually, they also understood that Di Baichen and Ziren were telling the truth. Even though they were valued by the Inferno School, their development was still not as good as that of Di Baichen. Back then, Ziren's strength was not stronger than theirs, but now, when Ziren's strength had surpassed theirs. This was the difference. Furthermore, when Ziren and the others had entered the Immortal Cloud's secret realm, this was something that they could not touch at all. However, as ordinary cultivators, they also knew that the Immortal Cloud's secret realm was a top training ground. Unfortunately, only the top cultivators of the various large factions had the opportunity to enter. With their current situation, they might not be able to reach that level even if they worked hard for a lifetime. This is my keepsake. When the time comes, if you decide to find us, just bring this keepsake to the Emperor Cloud City. Wanyan Han took the keepsake from Di Baichen and held it tightly in his hand. He nodded seriously and said, "Okay." Noticing the change in Wanyan Han's expression, Di Baichen knew that he had some plans. Then we'll leave first today. See you later. See you later. Looking at the familiar transmission array in front of them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smiled at each other and walked in without hesitation. If it was any other day, they would definitely stop anyone who entered the transmission array. Chapter 55-25. When the four of them opened their eyes again, they were greeted by that familiar darkness. Looking at the terrifying skeleton army in front of them, they were no longer as nervous and apprehensive as they were before. The skeletons that had once been difficult for them to deal with now felt particularly familiar. After all, Di Baichen was the true Dark Holy Sun, and these skeletons were practically his own people. Thinking back, it was really dangerous here. Fortunately, Ling was there, and Hongzhuang was fine. Shangguan Yingying sighed with lingering fear. If Ling wasn't there, they really wouldn't be interested in doing anything if something happened to Bailey Hongzhuang. Speaking of which, are Ling and Yen Che still cultivating in seclusion? Ziren couldn't help but ask. Ling is of the light attribute, and she's also a dragon. If she appears in this training ground, she'll be a beacon of light, so she doesn't plan to come out. It won't be too late for her to come out after we leave the training ground. Then what about Yen Che? Shangguan Yingying asked doubtfully. Yen Che has two attributes. He's busy cultivating, but since Ling came out, he should also come out. As soon as they appear, they'll be arguing non-stop. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and sighed. In the past, it was Xiao He and Xiao Bai who were chattering non-stop, but these two little guys were still of one mind most of the time. However, Bailey Yen Che and Ling were different. These two were completely a pair of enemies, and they would fight no matter what. Actually, she felt that it was pretty good for these two to stay in the Chaos Ring. Haha, actually, I think it's very lively like this. Shangguan Yingying looked excited. It's so fun. You just want to see the world burn, Ziren said. Actually, it's probably because Linger always bullied Yen Che before he transformed into a human, so he decided to turn the tables on her after he transformed into a human. That's why he ended up like this. Di Baichen spread out his hands. Back then, Linger's cultivation was the highest, and she had also transformed into a human form. It could be said that she looked down on the four beasts, which was why this situation had occurred. Yen Che is now cultivating with all his might because he wants to catch up to Ling-er's cultivation. Although Yen Che used to be very serious in his cultivation, I feel that he's even more hard-working now. Baichen, you're telling the truth. Haha. When Ziren agreed. Yen Che is a man, after all. He's always being suppressed by Ling Er. Of course he's unhappy. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two men who thought alike, and a trace of helplessness appeared in her black eyes. Perhaps this was a man's characteristic. Even Xiao Xuanzi was now cultivating with all his might, so that he could transform into a human as soon as possible. Let's go. The scope of this training ground is not small. It'll take some time to get out. Di Beichen looked ahead. He had stayed here for so long in the past, so he was quite familiar with the terrain. After the skeleton army noticed the sudden appearance of Di Beichen's group of 4, they immediately locked onto them and waved their weapons, wanting to attack. Dark energy surged out from Di Beichen's body. Immediately after, the skeletons that were about to attack stopped and bowed respectfully to Di Beichen, as if submitting to him. A wide road quietly appeared. The originally scattered skeleton army now stood on both sides like guards. Their postures were straight and solemn as they watched Di Beichen's group leave. Chapter 55-26. Although Shangguan Yingying already knew that Di Beichen was a dark attribute cultivator and the skeleton army would definitely not attack him, the battle formation in front of her was still beyond her expectations. The skeleton army she had seen in the past was baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. This was the first time she had seen such a spectacular scene. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also lit up after seeing this scene. It seemed that Di Beichen's dark power had improved quite a bit during this period. I suddenly feel a little depressed. Why am I not a dark attribute cultivator? When Xiren looked annoyed. The scene in front of him was really too eye-catching. Other things aside, who would dare to cause trouble when he went out with a group of skeleton guards? I think so too. Shangguan Yingying pouted, her eyes full of envy. The dark attribute is still shameful in the upper realm. You guys have it easy. What's more, cultivate well. Every attribute is very powerful. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Anyway, you're already a dark attribute cultivator. What are we worried about? When Xiren looked calm. If we're all dark attribute cultivators, we can fight side by side with you. Even if you're not, you can't run away from fighting side by side. Di Beichen raised his lips and smiled faintly. Let's go. There's still a while to go from here to the teleportation formation. Let's go. The 4 of them quickened their pace. Without the obstruction of the skeleton army, everyone's speed was extremely fast. After leaving the teleportation formation to the upper realm for some distance, the 4 of them began to meet other cultivators. Noticing the familiar clothes on these cultivators, the 4 of them showed sighing smiles at the same time. Back then, they also wore the clothes of Penglai Palace and formed a team to train here. Now, this training ground was no longer a threat to them. Look, they came out from the center of the skeleton army without any injuries. A cultivator noticed Di Beichen and the other 3 who were strolling leisurely and could not help but exclaim. One should know that the area ahead was a forbidden area in their opinion. They absolutely could not go there. Almost all the cultivators who went there had a slim chance of survival. So far, no cultivator had even made it out alive. However, not only did they see it today, but the other party also came and went from the middle as if it was his own backyard. There was no sense of nervousness at all. This made him wonder if he had seen wrongly. Hearing this cultivator's words, everyone quickly turned their gazes. As expected, they saw 4 cultivators that they had never seen before. Most importantly, the attire of these 4 cultivators did not belong to any of the 3 major forces. This was the strangest part. Where did they come from? Isn't it said that only the cultivators from the 3 major powers can come to the training grounds? The other cultivator could not help but be dumbfounded. This situation was truly beyond their understanding. Look, they're about to leave. Should we follow them and take a look? Staying in this training ground, everyone's spirit was always tense, in case the skeleton army appeared at any time. However, although the 4 cultivators did not show anything, It was clear from their indifferent expressions that the training ground did not seem to be a threat to them. Chapter 55:27. As one of the cultivators suggested this idea, the other cultivators also chimed in one after another. In fact, they had already planned to go back, but the night was too dangerous and they had to be more vigilant. Therefore, they planned to stay here for one more night and leave after dawn. However, after seeing these 4 cultivators, they changed their minds. Those guys seem to be following us? Shangguan Yingying noticed the movements of some cultivators behind her, and could not help but frown. Logically speaking, they were just passing by. The other party should not want to attack them, right? Judging from their clothes, they are from Penglai Palace. If they are not causing trouble for us, then forget it. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. They were the inner disciples of Penglai Palace after all. They were from the same sect. Naturally, they could not attack their fellow disciples. Shangguan Yingying nodded slightly. That's true. However, I just don't understand why they want to follow us. Maybe you are too beautiful, so they want to follow you and take a good look. Xiren joked. Although he did not understand why these cultivators were following them, it did not affect his good mood. Once again, they returned to the lower realm. Even though there was still a long distance to the outside world, with their speed, it would not be long before they could reunite with their loved ones. When he thought of his old man, he felt very expectant. Back then, his old man wanted to drive him out all day long so that he could broaden his horizons. Now, he had really broadened his horizons. However, after not seeing him for so long, his old man must be very worried about him. Hearing Xiren's words, Shangguan Yingying nodded seriously. That's right. I believe what you said is the truth. Xiao He could not help but cover her eyes. This really stung her eyes. Xiao He, what do you mean by this? Shangguan Yingying's face suddenly darkened. This little furball did not give her any face. Nothing. My eyes just hurt a little. Do you want me to ravage your little head again? No. Xiao He quickly waved her hand. Sister Yingying, you are gentle, beautiful, and generous. How could you do such a cruel thing to me? Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows. Then I'll reluctantly let you go. However, while they were joking and walking, Di Beichen's expression suddenly became serious. The skeleton army is about to appear. Pay attention to your feet. Hearing that, Shangguan Yingying and the others stopped joking. They needed to be careful with the sudden appearance of the whole. There was no need to worry about Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, but if the 2 of them were to fall, even with their current strength, they would not end up well. As expected, after Di Beichen's reminder, the ground suddenly became soft. Holes appeared one after another, and the skeleton army quickly emerged from the ground like bamboo shoots after the rain. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had expected this. Although they dodged the attack immediately, the cultivators who had been following them were not so lucky. Chapter 55:28. Noticing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, who had been calmly preparing to leave, could not help but pause in their footsteps. They stared at the cultivators behind them who had been caught off guard and could lose their lives at any time. The 4 of them then sighed quietly before flying away. After all, they were all members of the Penglai Palace. They could not leave them to die. One of the cultivators watched as he was about to fall into the pit and never get out again. A thick sense of despair appeared on his face. After being in the training ground for so long, he had long understood that once he falls into the pit, he would not even have a corpse left. Even though cultivators would fall in this environment every time, he had always felt that his luck was pretty good and that he would not end up in such a miserable state. However, he never thought that this would happen to him in the end. Just as he closed his eyes and was about to accept his fate, a powerful force suddenly grabbed his hand. He then felt his body fly through the air and leaped out of the pit. This force was even more shocking than the force in the pit. He could not resist it at all. When he opened his eyes again, he realized that he was already standing on flat ground and had left the area where the skeleton army had been. It was not only him, the other cultivators were also standing on the spot in a daze. This sudden situation had completely exceeded their expectations. They had been so close to death, yet they had suddenly come back to life. This made them feel as if they had fallen into a dream. They simply could not believe that this was all real. Their gazes shifted slightly and they, who were still in a state of shock, suddenly realized that the 4 people whom they had been following were rescuing people in the area where the skeleton army had appeared. They saw that the 4 figures were like a whirlwind as they shuttled through the skeleton army without any pressure. They then rescued the cultivators who had been surrounded by the skeleton army one by one. It was only at this moment that they realized that the great force they had felt earlier was the power of these cultivators. Heavens, they are so powerful! With this level of cultivation, they have no fear of the skeleton army at all. It's no wonder that they could walk out from the center of the pit. What terrifying power! Even the palace master's powers may not be a match for them, right? A cultivator looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 with admiration. He couldn't help but compare them with the hallmaster. Hearing this cultivator's guess, the others looked at each other. I've never seen the hall master's strength before, so I don't know either. Anyway, I know that he's definitely stronger than teacher. That's right. We were tailing them earlier, and they were actually willing to save us. Everyone felt a wave of shame in their hearts. Previously, they had only chosen to follow him because they were too curious and wanted to know his identity. However, they also understood that the other party must have known of their existence. The only thing they didn't expect was that the other party would be so magnanimous and willing to save them despite knowing that they were following them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were very fast. In the blink of an eye, they had rescued everyone who was surrounded by the skeleton army. Thank you, benefactor, for saving us. The frightened crowd hurriedly cupped their hands to express their gratitude. Be careful, Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. Yes. Shangguan Yingying looked at the group of cultivators in front of her and asked with a frown, speaking of which, why are you following us? Chapter 55-29. After a long while, a man braced himself and stood up. He said with some embarrassment, actually, we just saw our benefactors appear from the center of the training ground. We felt that your strength must be very strong. In addition, we originally planned to go back, so we wanted to go back with you. As soon as the cultivator finished speaking, the other cultivators nodded in agreement. That's right, that's right. That's our plan. Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying looked at everyone suspiciously but did not say anything. As for whether she believed this explanation or not, only she would know. Everyone looked nervously at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. They did not know if the other party believed what they had said. If they did not believe it, with the strength of these 4 people, killing them would be no different from killing a grasshopper. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not take this matter to heart. Therefore, they did not care too much about the other party's explanation. It's not far from dawn. Be careful, we're leaving. After leaving this sentence, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen turned around and left with them. As disciples of the same sect, they had already done their utmost benevolence by doing this. At the next moment, without waiting for anyone to speak, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had already disappeared into the skeleton army. In the blink of an eye they had disappeared. Looking at the 4 people who had disappeared in front of them, the remaining cultivators looked at each other in dismay. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. They actually rushed into the army of skeletons just like that. Am I seeing things? One of them rubbed his eyes. He only felt that his eyes must be playing tricks on him. Until now, he had never heard of anyone who dared to rush into the skeleton army so boldly. No, you're not seeing things. I saw it too. What kind of strength is this? I also wish that I could become so strong. Everyone looked envious, but their hearts were filled with curiosity. This kind of strong cultivator should not be a nameless person. The speed of Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 was very fast. In the eyes of others, it was extremely difficult to gain experience, but for them, it was like walking on flat ground. Whether it was day or night, everyone's speed was not the least bit delayed. A few days later, the four of them finally arrived at the teleportation array. Looking at the familiar teleportation array, the four of them couldn't help but smile. Once they left Penglai Island, they would be able to return home. After entering the teleportation formation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three appeared directly in the area of Penglai Palace. Usually, there were many cultivators gathered near the teleportation array. At this moment, four strangers suddenly appeared. The cultivators of Penglai Palace could not help but be stunned. Who are these people? Why did you appear in our Penglai Palace? They aren't wearing the uniforms of our Penglai Palace. Could it be that they are from the other two forces? At the thought of this, the gazes of the cultivators turned gloomy as they looked at the four of them. The battle between the three major forces had not changed for so many years. There were people from other forces who dared to come to their territory so blatantly. If they did not teach them a lesson, wouldn't it weaken the reputation of Penglai Palace? Feeling the hostile gazes around him, Ziren couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. It's only been a few years since we left this place, and no one knows us anymore? Chapter 55-30. You're right, but how should we deal with the situation in front of us? Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows. The cultivators around them seemed to treat them as enemies. It looked like they wanted to teach them a lesson. Are you afraid of them? Di Baichen chuckled. Of course I'm not afraid, but if we hurt them, we won't be able to explain it to Long Yanwei, right? Ziren had a faint smile on his face. In this Penglai Palace, they were most familiar with Long Yanwei. Their contract beasts were all thanks to Long Yanwei. Without him, they would not have been able to have contract beasts. Long Yanwei was indeed the best contract master in Penglai Island. Even in the upper realm, their contract beasts were not weak at all. Haha, Ziren is right. Shangguan Yingying could not help but laugh out loud. With their current strength, even if these cultivators ganged up on them, it would not affect them at all. When the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, even numbers could not change all of this. Just as many cultivators were planning to teach Di Baichen and the other three a lesson, suddenly, a cultivator recognized them. No. They are our inner disciples. The man looked at Di Baichen and the other three in shock. His memory quickly overlapped. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three stayed in Penglai Palace for a short time, the commotion they caused could be said to be unique. They had only joined Penglai Palace not long ago, but they were directly promoted from outer disciples to inner disciples. The most important thing was that so many disciples ganged up on them at that time. Everyone was sure that they would lose, but they did not expect them to break through and seriously injure hundreds of cultivators. It could be said that they became famous in one battle. As the cultivator's voice fell, everyone was stunned and doubts appeared on their faces. Is it true? I'm definitely not mistaken. This woman is Bailey Hongzhuang, the one who developed the drug to resist the dark power. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang was the #1 beauty in Penglai Palace. Any man who saw her would not be able to forget that stunning face. If everyone did not believe that everything the man said was true before, then when he mentioned Bailey Hongzhuang, everyone's expression suddenly changed. Bailey Hongzhuang, in this Penglai Palace, could be said to be famous. Because Bailey Hongzhuang developed this drug powder and offered it to Penglai Palace, Penglai Palace's position in Penglai Island became more stable. Although Penglai Palace once was slightly better of the three forces, 100 Flowers and Red Moon Sect always wanted to take the opportunity to surpass them. Since this incident happened, 100 Flowers and Red Moon Sect had given up this idea. However, they only stayed in Penglai Palace for a short period of time before disappearing. Many disciples who came later regretted that they did not see the real faces of the two. However, no one expected Bailey Hongzhuang to suddenly reappear after disappearing for such a long time. Moreover, she appeared directly at the teleportation array. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been in the training ground all this time? Chapter 55-31. Senior brother, you're not mistaken, are you? Is she really Bailey Hongzhuang? Don't worry, I'm definitely not mistaken. After the first man recognized them, several cultivators also recognized the identities of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. That's right, it's them. I didn't expect them to actually come back. Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Compared to before, the aura of these four people had changed quite a bit. In the past, they didn't look like ordinary people, but now, just by standing there, they gave people an incomparably powerful feeling. Even if they didn't know their strength, a sense of fear had already arisen in their hearts. Even the palace master couldn't compare to this kind of aura. For a moment, the cultivators who were familiar with the situation of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three also secretly pondered in their hearts. It had only been a short few years. What exactly happened to Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three? Why did they improve so much in such a short period of time? Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three walked down from the teleportation device and slowly walked forward under the shocked and admiring gazes of the crowd. Although we've been away for a while, this Penglai Palace is still the same as before. There's not much change. Shangguan Yingying looked around. Everything in front of her felt very familiar. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Indeed, should we go and see Master Long? He helped us a lot back then. Di Beichen thought about it and nodded. Since we're already here, let's make a trip. Back then, Long Yanwei paid a great price to recruit them to Penglai Palace. Moreover, after they came, Long Yanwei took care of them in every possible way. Now that they were here, if they didn't pay him a visit, it would be too unreasonable. I don't know if he still treats the monster egg as a treasure like he did back then, and I don't know if the palace master still has his eyes on the monster egg, haha. As if recalling the interesting scenes from back then, Xiren's voice was light and full of interest. Every time he saw Long Yanwei's distressed look, he found it particularly interesting. If that's the case, what are we waiting for? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Haha, let's go. The four of them walked towards Long Yanwei's residence with ease and familiarity. Along the way, they also encountered many strange gazes. Whenever some new cultivators showed hostility, there were always some cultivators who knew Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three who stopped them. At the same time, the news of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's return also quickly spread throughout the Penglai Palace. Have you heard? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen are back. Don't lie to me. They left the Penglai Palace long ago. How could they come back? I'm not lying to you. If you don't believe me, you can go out and ask around. The news has already spread far and wide. Almost all the cultivators were extremely shocked when they heard the news. They all ran out, wanting to see what the two legendary figures looked like. Long Yanwei was originally inside the house looking at his newly sealed pet beast when he suddenly heard a commotion outside. He couldn't help but frown. Did something big happen today? Why is it so noisy outside? With his status in the Penglai Palace, generally, no one dared to disturb him. Of course, except for Bailey Hongzhuang and the other four. Chapter 55-32. Long Yanwei could not help but recall the five figures from back then. Speaking of which, he had stayed in the Penglai Palace for quite some time, but the ones who had left the deepest impression on him were Di Beichen's group of five. That was the first time he had taken the initiative to recruit someone, and he had paid an unimaginable price for it. However, later on, he had realized that it had been the most worthwhile transaction. It was because of his decision back then that his position in the Penglai Palace had improved by quite a bit. He never thought that Di Beichen's identity would be so shocking. He was the son of an aristocratic family from the upper realm. At the same time, because of this identity, his position had also improved by quite a bit. If it was possible, Long Yanwei would like to have the opportunity to meet him again. However, he knew very well that it was almost impossible for them to meet again. People from the upper realm would usually not return. Even though Di Baichen's identity was honorable and he might be able to return, there was no point in him returning. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out from outside the door. "Lord Long, are you there?" Long Yanwei furrowed his brows when he heard this voice. A look of astonishment flashed across his eyes. Could it be that I've heard wrongly? Why does this voice sound so much like Bailey Hongzhuang's voice? Long Yanwei opened the door with disbelief in his heart. However, when he saw the four familiar figures in front of him, a thick look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. He stared fixedly at the four of them. After confirming that his eyes were not playing tricks on him, he realized that the four of them had really returned. A thick look of surprise instantly appeared on his face. "Why have you returned?" Long Yanwei, who was still in the midst of his surprise, could not help but ask. He never thought that he would actually meet Di Baichen and the others again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but chuckle when they saw Long Yanwei's shocked look. "Why can't we return? Could it be that you don't want us to return, Lord Long?" "Of course not," Long Yanwei quickly replied. "I'm just too surprised to see you." Long Yanwei then looked behind Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. When he realized that there was no sign of Mo Yunjue, he could not help but frown. Previously, the five of them had always been together. Why were there only four of them now? Noticing the doubt unconsciously revealed between Long Yanwei's brows, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already guessed his thoughts. They immediately explained with a smile, "Yunju is still training, so he didn't come back with us this time." Hearing this, Long Yanwei finally understood. "So that's how it is. Come in and have a seat," Long Yanwei invited with a face full of smiles. "It's such a pleasant surprise to see you again." After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three entered the house, Long Yanwei closed the door. There were still many cultivators outside the house who stretched their necks, wanting to see what was going on. He was also quite helpless. "Master Long, you're still as good-tempered as ever." Ziren smiled faintly. If it were any other instructor, ordinary disciples would not dare to be so brazen. Come to think of it, only Long Yanwei would dare to be so impudent. Actually, they're very simple. Back then, didn't you guys have no scruples at all when you were with me? Long Yanwei raised his eyebrows. He remembered very clearly that Ziren, this brat, liked to take advantage of others the most. Haha, these words. We're so embarrassed. Chapter 55-33. Seeing that Long Yanwei had already seen through him, Ziren did not care. Instead, his smile became even more brilliant. After not seeing each other for such a long time, everything was still the same as before when they met again. This feeling also made him miss it very much. Not only Ziren, but Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two also had the same feeling. The long-lost sense of familiarity made them feel particularly close. "What do you want to do this time?" Long Yanwei's face was full of smiles. He was happy from the bottom of his heart to be able to see the four familiar people again. Perhaps they met each other for various purposes in the beginning, but as they became familiar with each other, they had become true friends. What made him happy was that even though Di Baichen's identity was so noble, he could still get along with him like before. He was very clear about how rare this was. Being in the high position of Penglai Palace, he had met countless people of all shapes and sizes. Many people had forgotten their former friends after they had some ability. He had seen too many things about various forces. Fortunately, he had never misjudged Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. These four people had never been people who would forget righteousness at the sight of profit, and they would not change their faces because of the change in their identity. Previously, I went to the upper realm because of an accident. I have not contacted my family for so long. This time, I finally have time, so I plan to go back and see my family, and then bring them to the upper realm together. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with bright joy. After waiting for so long, she was finally back. When she thought that she would be able to go back and see her family soon, she was overjoyed. She could not wait to return to the Lan family and Tiangang sect immediately. She remembered that she had spent such a long time to be able to reunite with her parents, but she did not expect that they would be separated again after such a short time. She hoped that after bringing her parents to the upper realm this time, they would be able to be together often in the future. I see. Long Yanwei suddenly understood and could not help but sigh in his heart. Only Di Bei Chen's wife would have the courage to say such a thing. Otherwise, if it was an ordinary person, wanting to enter the upper realm was already more difficult than ascending to the heavens, let alone wanting to bring their loved ones up together. However, in this world, the strong were respected. Order was often used to make the weak abide by it. The strong were the ones who broke the rules. Speaking of which, although I've known about the existence of the upper realm for a long time, I still don't know what it looks like. If possible, can you tell me about the upper realm? Long Yanwei revealed a look of anticipation. Not to mention him, even the palace master did not know much about the upper realm. He was also very curious about the existence of a higher plane. Noticing Long Yanwei's expectant look, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three couldn't help but smile at each other. For many people who did not know about the upper realm, it was best not to speak about it. However, Long Yanwei already knew about it, so it did not matter if he learned a little more about it. Master Long, in the past, it was always us asking questions and you explaining. I didn't expect that there would be a time when you would ask us questions, when Xiren joked with a smile. Once upon a time, they had always wanted to understand the true situation of the upper realm from Long Yanwei. Chapter 55-34. Haha, no. Seeing Long Yanwei rolling his eyes at him, Xiren quickly waved his hand, but the teasing look on his face was still obvious. Are you going to tell me or not? Long Yanwei said in annoyance. I'll tell you. Xiren nodded. How can we not tell you what Master Long wants to know? In fact, the upper realm is not much different from Penglai Island. It's just that the area is bigger and there are more powerhouses. Of course, the most important thing is that the cultivation method of the upper realm is fundamentally different from that of the lower realm, Di Beichen slowly explained. Long Yanwei was surprised. The cultivation method is different? Then how do they cultivate? We cultivate pure elemental energy. After reaching the astral boundary, we will awaken our own attributes and begin to cultivate elemental energy. Di Beichen and the others did not hold back. Long Yanwei was their benefactor. No matter what he wanted to know, they were willing to explain it to him. Xiren even told him some of the interesting things that happened in the upper realm. All of this was tantamount to opening a new door for Long Yanwei. Many things that he had never touched or even imagined before appeared before his eyes. The once ethereal and illusory things gradually became clearer at this moment. So the upper realm is actually like this. This is really interesting. Long Yanwei could not help but sigh. This world was really amazing. If Di Beichen had not told him about it, he was afraid that he would not have been able to figure all this out. Master Long, with your strength, it's not a problem to enter the upper realm. Why don't you consider going to the upper realm? Xiren could not help but ask after noticing Long Yanwei's interest in the upper realm. He clearly saw the expectation and yearning on the latter's face, but he did not know why Long Yanwei would choose to stay here. It was really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Long Yanwei when they heard this. They also noticed this from his expression and could not help but feel a little puzzled. They originally thought that Long Yanwei had chosen to stay in Penglai Palace because it was more comfortable here. Not everyone wanted to go to a higher level. Sometimes, choosing to stay in a place that was suitable for oneself was not necessarily a bad thing. This was because everyone had their own pursuits, and these pursuits were often different. However, it seemed that the real situation was somewhat different from what they had imagined. Long Yanwei was silent for a moment and said, I promised the palace master that I would help him strengthen the Penglai palace. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally understood. In the past, they already knew that Long Yanwei had an extremely good relationship with the hall master. Even if the hall master had extorted him every time, Long Yanwei had never bothered about it. Similarly, Penglai Palace's status on Penglai Island was inseparable from Long Yanwei. However, they did not expect that there was an even deeper relationship between Long Yanwei and the palace master. Lord Long, the days are long. If you change your mind and want to go to the upper realm in the future, you can contact us at any time. Di Beichen smiled faintly. He had always admired people who had their own perseverance. As a contractor of Long Yanwei's level, even if he went to the upper realm, he would still be in existence that attracted attention. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Long Yanwei smiled faintly and then nodded. If I go to the upper realm, I will definitely look for you. Chapter 55-35. Just as Di Beichen and the others were chatting happily, there was a sudden rush of footsteps outside the door. The five of them stopped talking and turned to look outside the house. Although they did not see anyone, they already had a guess in their hearts. Yanwei, I heard all the disciples say that Di Beichen and the others have returned as soon as I came back today. Is this true? Yizihua and Bai Tsangming strode into the house. Their usually calm faces were now filled with anxiety. However, as soon as the two of them entered, they saw the four familiar faces. Immediately, the anxiety on their faces disappeared and was replaced by a strong sense of surprise. I didn't expect it to be true. You're really back. Yizihua raised his voice, and his handsome face was filled with amazement. Hall Master, Instructor E, long time no see. The four of them stood up with smiles on their faces. I really didn't expect that we would have the chance to meet again. Bai Tsangming's black eyes were filled with amazement. He had rushed over as soon as he heard the news. Di Beichen had the best relationship with Long Yanwei back in Penglai Palace. If he really came back, he would definitely come here. Along the way, he had also heard many cultivators discussing this matter. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he could not help but be stunned. Haha, we already knew that we would meet again one day, Di Beichen said with a smile. Yizihua sat down beside the group. A few days ago, Yanwei and I were still talking about you. We didn't expect you to appear so soon. You're really telepathic. Talking about what? Shangguan Yingying asked curiously. Speaking of which, it's fortunate that Hongzhuang left the prescription behind. Otherwise, the disciples would be in trouble if you didn't return, Yizihua said with a smile. Indeed. Bai Tsangming nodded. The prescription that Hongzhuang left behind really helped everyone. Now, everyone in Penglai Palace remembers your name. Because of the prescription, Penglai Palace's status is now one level higher than before. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you. Until now, he couldn't help but sigh at how generous Bailey Hongzhuang was. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely not hand over the prescription so easily. However, Bailey Hongzhuang handed it over just like that, and they did not even need to say anything. That's all thanks to Hongzhuang. Di Beichen smiled faintly. We are also very happy to see that the status of Penglai Palace has improved. It's not just Hongzhuang's credit. Bai Tsangming looked at Di Beichen seriously. It's also your credit. Di Beichen was slightly stunned when he heard Bai Tsangming's words. He didn't understand what Bai Tsangming meant. When you went missing, your father ruthlessly taught those people from the Crimson Moon sect a lesson. In just one night, those guys have been completely erased from this world. Bai Tsangming sighed emotionally as he looked at Di Beichen. Even he couldn't help but sigh at such methods. Although it was your father who did it, the Crimson Moon sect's power suffered a huge blow after they disappeared, which indirectly helped us. Once he said that, everyone finally understood. That's right. That was indeed the case back then. Xiren nodded slightly. It was also because of that incident that he understood how much Di Yujua valued Di Beichen. Chapter 55-36. I see. D. Bachan's expression was calm, but he couldn't help but feel touched. Ever since he returned to the clan, he had felt his father's love. No matter when, his father would support his decision unconditionally. Even if he didn't see that scene with his own eyes, he could imagine what it would be like. By the way, when you left, Wan Yenling also went with you. Did you meet him? Izihua couldn't help but ask. As a mentor, Wan Yenling was undoubtedly his favorite student. However, Wan Yenling was wholeheartedly looking for his brother, so he didn't ask him to stay. There was always a regret in his heart that he didn't know how all the disciples who left were doing now. In the upper realm, where there were many strong people, no one knew if they could adapt. Senior brother Ling is doing well. We even went to see him when we came back this time, Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Originally, Izihua was just asking casually and didn't have any hope at all. However, when he suddenly heard such an unexpected answer, he couldn't help but be stunned. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and didn't even react. On the other hand, Long Yanwei's face was full of interest. It's said that this teleportation is random. You actually happened to meet each other? When we went to the upper realm, we went with senior brother Ling, Xiren said with a smile. I see. Izihua suddenly understood. That's right. You left on the same day. I didn't think of this. Not only that, the most coincidental thing is that Hong Zhuang met senior brother Wan Yanhan in the upper realm. They are now together, Shangguan Yingying added. Hearing this news, Bai Cangming's face was also full of surprise. That's great. They are very outstanding cultivators in our Penglai Palace. We can rest assured that they are doing well in the upper realm. Your return this time really brought us a lot of good news. Long Yanwei chuckled. This feeling was simply like seeing a family member return. It was so happy. For a moment, the room was filled with joy and harmony. Everyone exchanged greetings. The palace master, who was once high and mighty in their eyes, was now no different from a friend. By the way, why did you come back this time? After chatting for a while, Bai Cangming couldn't help but ask with concern, do you need our help? They came back this time to bring their loved ones back to the upper realm. This is a joyous occasion. I'm afraid they won't need your help, Long Yanwei said with a faint smile. Indeed. Bai Cangming nodded slightly. It's not easy to make a trip back from the upper dimension. Since it's possible, it's undoubtedly the best choice to bring our loved ones over. Speaking of which, I'm reminded of something interesting. Izihua chuckled inexplicably, as if he had thought of something very funny. What interesting thing? After you left, your deeds gradually spread, and then some people came out and claimed to be your relative. In the beginning, many people really believed it. However, as more and more people impersonated them, they realized that it was all fake. It caused quite a stir at that time. It's interesting just thinking about it. Chapter 55-37. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 looked at each other in dismay. They really didn't expect such a situation to occur. When they first appeared, many people were deceived and wanted to use them to form a relationship with you. But speaking of which, those fellows' acting skills were indeed not bad. They also made up a set of stories. No wonder so many people believed them. Then what about now? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Cultivators nowadays were really flexible. In order to obtain benefits, it wasn't a big deal for them to make up lies. After someone was exposed, the situation took a turn for the better. Because no one believed them, gradually, no one used this method to deceive others, said Long Yanwei. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She didn't want to have so many relatives for no reason. Speaking of which, recently, there was someone who claimed to be your father. But what was his name again? Izihua frowned as he pondered. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. He claimed to be my father? Izihua nodded. That's right. Actually, there were people who claimed to be your uncle or aunt. But he was the only one who claimed to be your father. Even if it was a story, this identity was too intimate. It was because of this that I understood this person's situation. But for a moment I've forgotten his name. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other as a guess emerged in their minds. Suddenly, Di Beichen asked, "Is he called Lan Yunxiao?" Yizihua widened his eyes and nodded. "That's right. It's Lan Yunxiao." Long Yanwei and Bai Tsangming, who were originally joking, couldn't help but straighten their expressions. They realized that the situation was different from what they had imagined. "How do you know this name?" Yizihua looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in a daze. "He can't really be your father, right?" "My father is Lan Yunxiao." Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was serious. She was certain that this person was her father. They had not returned for so long. With his father's temperament, it was very likely that he would come to Penglai Island to look for him. After hearing this affirmative answer, Long Yanwei and the other two also became serious. "Heavens! Uncle actually came to Penglai Island!" Shangguan Yingying exclaimed. This was beyond her expectations. Yizihua was also a little embarrassed. "Previously, there were too many people pretending to be your relatives, so we didn't take it to heart. Even though I was a little surprised when I heard that he claimed to be your father, I thought that he was just trying to win by surprise. After all, the two of you weren't here, so no one knew whether he was telling the truth or not. I didn't expect this to be true. Is my father still in Penglai Island?" Bailey Hongzhuang stood up. Her white face was full of seriousness and tension. In her heart, her father had always been an existence that could hold up the sky. However, as she grew up, she understood that there were too many dangers in the outside world. Even his father had to be careful. "Zihua, do you know?" Long Yanwei looked at Yizihua. He usually did not care much about such things, so he did not understand. Chapter 55-38. "Why don't you sit here and wait for me? I'll go and find out what's going on. I'll be back very soon." Yizihua's expression was serious. Since the other party was Bailey Hongzhuang's father, he naturally had to be careful. "All right, then we'll have to trouble Teacher Yi," Di Beichen replied. In the next moment, Yizihua quickly left. Bailey Hongzhuang remained standing at the same spot with a frown. Her peerless face was filled with unconcealable worry. Even if Yizihua didn't say anything, from his expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could see a lot of things. Something important? Bailey Hongzhuang instinctively sensed that this was probably not something good. Otherwise, Yizihua would not have looked so nervous. "Wife, sit down first. Don't worry." Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and gestured for her not to be nervous. However, his heart ached when he felt the coldness of her hand. "Don't worry, father will be fine." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her senses. She nodded blankly and sat there quietly. Countless thoughts still surfaced in her mind. The originally lively atmosphere suddenly quieted down. Long Yanwei and Bai Tsangming looked at each other and felt a little guilty. Bailey Hongzhuang had helped them so much. They should do their best to take care of her family. However, they did not expect that they did not even know the truth of the situation. They really should not have done that. Yizihua was very fast. After understanding the situation, he quickly rushed back. "I've understood it clearly. There's an arranged battle between your father and Crimson Moon Sect's teacher Yan Haoguang today." Bailey Hongzhuang immediately stood up when she heard this. Her delicate face was filled with seriousness and malice. "When is it?" "It's agreed to be held at noon. It'll start soon." "Where is it?" Di Beichen hurriedly asked. "It's on Crimson Moon Island, where the Crimson Moon Sect is located." "Let's go now." Di Beichen's eyes narrowed. The Crimson Moon Sect again. Back then, there was a conflict with the Crimson Moon Sect. After the Crimson Moon Sect was taught a lesson, their strength had been greatly affected. If it was not for Di Yujue's agreement between the Upper Realm and Lower Realm, the Crimson Moon Sect would have ceased to exist. However, the Crimson Moon Sect had now dared to oppose his father. They were really digging their own graves. Bailey Hongzhuang. The teachers of the Crimson Moon sect would not be weak. This battle would not be simple. Just as Bai Tsongming was thinking about how to hurry, Di Beichen had already taken out a flying magic tool. Seeing that Di Beichen and the other three had already entered, Bai Tsongming and the other two did not delay and hurriedly followed. Di Beichen activated the flying device immediately. There was quite a distance between the Crimson Moon Island and Penglai Island. If they hurried like before, the competition would have ended by the time they arrived. However, with this flying magic tool, their speed would undoubtedly be much faster. Feeling the flying device's speed, Bai Tsongming and the other two were shocked. They had never seen such a treasure before. Is this a flying device? Bai Tsongming looked at the flying car and could not help but ask. Chapter 55-39. After receiving an affirmative answer, Bai Tsongming sighed in his heart. As the palace master of Penglai Palace, he naturally knew more about the situation than the others. However, he had only heard of such a rare treasure and had never seen it before. He never thought that he would have the opportunity to sit on a flying instrument. Similarly, from this, it could be seen that Di Beichen's position in the Di family was not simple. Instructor E, can you tell me more about the Crimson Moon sect's instructor? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Izihua. She did not know why her father would have a grudge with this person. However, based on her father's character, he would not easily get into a conflict with others. No problem. Izihua nodded. Yan Haoguang is a Crimson Moon sect's instructor and his position in the Crimson Moon sect is not simple. I have interacted with him before. He is a little arrogant because of his abilities and has always thought highly of himself. Therefore, he is not very popular. However, at the same time, he is indeed very powerful. That is why he is able to secure his position in the Crimson Moon sect. From what I know, the reason why your father got into a conflict with him this time was because of a man named Yu Linfeng. Yu Linfeng? Shangguan Yingying was stunned. Isn't that Hongzhuang's master? He is Hongzhuang's master? Izihua was also shocked. Di Beichen nodded. That's right. He is Hongzhuang's master. I believe that they came together this time. That makes sense. It seems that Yu Linfeng got into a conflict with Yan Haoguang and was severely injured by Yan Haoguang. Your father wanted to avenge Yu Linfeng, so he arranged a battle with him. My master is severely injured? Bailey Hongzhuang's face suddenly darkened, and her fan-like eyelashes cast a shadow, blocking the bloodthirsty killing intent in her eyes. She was already extremely unhappy with the Crimson Moon sect. How dare they plot against her? Now, a mere instructor had actually dared to injure her master. Since they dared to touch her reverse scale, she would definitely kill them. The atmosphere suddenly dropped to the freezing point. Everyone could feel the murderous intent in Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Indeed. Izihua nodded. He did not feel that Bailey Hongzhuang's behavior was inappropriate. If it were any other cultivator, knowing that someone they cared about was seriously injured, they would probably have the same reaction. My father-in-law's strength shouldn't be too different from master's. Did he take the initiative to challenge Yan Haoguang? Di Beichen frowned. His bright black eyes shone with wisdom. According to his understanding, his father-in-law would not do such a thing. Bai Tsongming and Long Yanwei also raised their heads. If the two of them were equally matched, it proved that Lan Yunxiao wasn't Yan Haoguang's opponent either. If he didn't have a reason, he wouldn't have done such a suicidal thing. It's said that he was forced to do so, that Yan Haoguang clearly wants to kill them. After Yu Linfeng was severely injured, Lan Yunxiao planned to take him away. He didn't expect the Crimson Moon sect's cultivators to stop them from leaving. They also stopped all the doctors from treating him. Unless Lan Yunxiao defeats Yan Haoguang, he won't let them leave. Bang! The table at the side was directly shattered into powder by Bailey Hongzhuang's palm. Bailey Hongzhuang could no longer suppress the anger in her chest. Bastard!